tonight's tranquil journey along the river of shifting sands. We hope you'll like this video and subscribe to our channel for more soothing content designed to help you relax and drift into a peaceful sleep. Before we begin our story, we'll take a few moments for a gentle breathing exercise to help you settle into a state of calm. If you prefer to skip directly to the story, you can find the timestamps for each chapter in the description below. Otherwise, settle in and let's begin. Tonight we'll be exploring the Seraphina Desert, a place of vast golden dunes and a unique river of sand that flows with a soothing rhythm. In this story, we'll meet Kael, a nomadic healer who understands the desert's calming energies, and join them on a journey of gentle restoration as they guide weary travellers toward inner peace. The story contains ancient rituals, healing properties found in desert sands, and soothing meditations, all designed to help you find your own shores of serenity. Let's take a moment to focus on our breath. Gently close your eyes if that feels comfortable, and imagine yourself sitting by the banks of that peaceful, sandy river. As you inhale, feel the warm, dry desert air filling your lungs, and as you exhale, imagine you are gently releasing any tension or unease, just like the sand flowing softly with the desert wind. Allow your breath to be soft and natural, without any strain or effort, moving with the same rhythm as the slowly shifting dunes of the desert. With each breath, allow yourself to sink deeper into relaxation, feeling your body become heavier and more at ease. If your thoughts begin to wander, that's perfectly natural. Simply acknowledge them and gently guide your attention back to your breathing or to the sound of my voice. There is nothing else you need to focus on except the gentle rhythm of your own body and the soothing sounds of the story we're about to begin. Let's now drift into the serene world of the river of shifting sands. Chapter 1. The Whispers of the Wind. The Seraphina Desert at dawn was a canvas painted in soft hues of rose and gold. The sun, a gentle orb rising from the horizon, cast long shadows that danced playfully across the dunes. A lone figure, Kael, stood at the edge of the sandy river, their silhouette a peaceful contrast against the vast landscape. The river, an anomaly in this arid expanse, flowed with a serene grace, a ribbon of fine golden sand winding its way through the heart of the desert. The gentle whisper of the morning wind was the only sound that broke the silence, a soft lullaby that seemed to soothe the very soul. Kael, their face serene and thoughtful, closed their eyes for a moment, breathing in the warm, dry air. They were attuned to the subtle energies of the desert, each grain of sand, each gust of wind, a whisper of the larger world. For years, Kael had lived by the sandy river, a quiet observer, a healer in the truest sense. Their days were filled with simple routines, the preparation of soothing teas from desert herbs, the careful tending of small patches of plants they had cultivated, and, most importantly, the study of the river's calming rhythm. They were a guardian of this gentle space, a protector of the peace that dwelled within. This morning, however, a different energy stirred within the sands, a subtle unrest, like a ripple on the surface of a still pond, caused Kael to turn their gaze towards a distant caravan of merchants that had settled by the river. It was unusual for the merchants to stay for so long. There was no way for Kael to know what might have happened to them. But as they watched from a distance, they could feel the subtle unease that pervaded the caravan, and it was clear that this was not a normal stop for the merchants. Kael decided to approach. Among the group, a merchant named Silas looked particularly troubled. Their brow was furrowed, their eyes wide with a restless unease that seemed to vibrate through their entire being. Silas paced back and forth, their steps erratic and hurried, a stark contrast to the slow, deliberate rhythm of the desert. It was clear, even from a distance, that sleep was evading this weary traveller. As Kael drew nearer, they could feel Silas's agitation begin to subside, as the gentle energy radiated through the air. With a soft smile, Kael approached the merchant, their voice a calming balm. "Greetings, friend," they said, their tone gentle and low. "I sense that your spirit is troubled. Is there anything that I might do to ease your way?" Silas turned, startled at first but quickly soothed by the healer's calm presence. I cannot sleep. My mind races like a storm, and I cannot find a moment of peace," Silas confided, their voice heavy with exhaustion and frustration. "Restlessness is a common ailment, especially here, where the desert's vastness can amplify the feelings within. However, rest can still be found," Kael replied, their eyes filled with understanding. Kael extended their hand, beckoning Silas to come closer to the riverbank. "The river holds an ancient wisdom. Let us sit together and listen to its gentle rhythm. Perhaps it can help guide you toward a calmer space." Silas, desperate for relief, gratefully followed. Kael then led Silas to a spot where the sand was soft, and the sound of the river was most soothing. They settled down upon the sand, feeling its fine, cool texture against their skin. Kael then pointed to the gently shifting sand, explaining that the desert had a way of balancing the mind with the earth, and that they would be together in this process, that they would both feel the connection and find rest. Together they breathed, their birds their breaths in perfect rhythm with the slow, deliberate pace of the flowing sand. The sun continued its gentle rise, casting a warm, golden glow upon the scene as it settled in over the desert. As the sun continued to slowly ascend into the sky, casting the world in a soft, golden glow, Kael began to guide Silas through a simple breathing exercise. "Breathe in the warmth of the sun and let go of the tension as you breathe out," they said, their voice smooth and calming. Silas felt a small measure of calm settle within. This was the beginning of their journey, a gentle first step toward finding peace by the river of shifting sands. Chapter 2. The Dance of the Sun and Moon. The day unfolded slowly, mirroring the gentle rhythm of the sandy river. Kael and Silas sat by the bank, the morning light warming their skin. Silas, though still weary, found a measure of comfort in Kael's calm presence and the repetitive flow of the sand. Kael began to explain the significance of the desert's cycles, how the rising sun brought energy and renewal, while the setting moon offered reflection and peace. They described how the desert itself was a teacher, with lessons etched in its every grain of sand and whispered in each gust of wind. The desert is not a barren place, but a space of subtle beauty and profound wisdom, Kael said, their voice a low, soothing hum. To find peace, we must learn to observe its gentle dance, the way the sun kisses the horizon, the moon graces the night sky, the soft undulation of the sands. They encourage Silas to notice the subtle shifts in the desert's hues, from the fiery glow of sunrise to the cool, soft blues of twilight. As they did, Kael began to show Silas how to align his own inner rhythm to that of the deserts. As the sun climbed higher, casting a warm blanket over the landscape, Kael began to show Silas the art of mindful observation. They guided Silas to focus on the delicate patterns of the sand, how each ripple and crest told a unique story of the wind's journey. Silas began to notice the way the light played across the dunes, creating intricate designs that shifted and changed with the passing moments. It was a form of meditation, simple yet profoundly grounding, which helped Silas begin to focus less on the thoughts in their head and more on the world around them. Later that afternoon, as the sun began its descent, painting the sky with hues of orange and lavender, a new figure arrived by the river. It was a musician, a young woman named Hana. Her lute slung across her shoulder. Her face, though beautiful, was marked with a deep sense of unrest. She moved with a restless energy, her gaze flitting about, unable to settle on any one thing. She approached Kael and Silas, drawn by the sense of calm she felt emanating from them. "I am lost," Hana said, her voice filled with a subtle despair. "My music has vanished. I cannot find my rhythm." Kael turned to her with an understanding smile, their eyes gentle and accepting. "Creativity, like the desert, ebbs and flows. Sometimes we lose our way only to find a new path." They then invited Hana to join them by the river, offering a cup of warm herbal tea. As the three sat together, Kael began to describe the sand painting ritual. They explained how the shifting dunes could be used as a canvas to express one's innermost feelings, that the slow process of creating and then letting go of the work could be a way of reconnecting with the creative flow. They demonstrated the technique using a small stick to make designs in the sand, moving with a deliberate and gentle pace, inviting Hana to do the same. The rhythmic motion was itself a way to find a balance and a connection to the earth. Hana hesitantly took a small stick and, looking to Kael as a guide, started to scratch soft lines into the sand. At first, she moved quickly and erratically, like her thoughts, but slowly, as she focused on the feel of the sand beneath her fingers, her pace began to slow. She noticed the patterns she was making and how they shifted with the wind. A visual representation of the flow that she felt was beginning to return to her. Silas, observing quietly, was inspired to create his own lines in the sand, feeling a sense of calm and creativity he had not experienced before. As the moon began to rise, casting a silvery glow over the desert, Kael shared that every small shift and change within the desert was a mirror of their own inner rhythm. By observing the natural world, they could also find the answers to their own selves. The lesson was clear. Find peace in the simple act of observing, in the dance of the sun and moon, and in the gentle wisdom of the river of shifting sands. As the three continued their observation, a comfortable silence settled over them all, filled with the quiet beauty of the desert night. Chapter 3: The Secrets of the Shifting Sands. The night descended upon the Seraphina Desert, draping it in a blanket of soft, starlit tranquility. The river of sand shimmered under the moonlight, its gentle flow a soothing lullaby that echoed through the quiet landscape. Kael, Silas and Hana sat close together, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of a small campfire. They were beginning to find a rhythm, a shared sense of peace that had settled over them like the desert's gentle night air. As the night progressed, the wind began to pick up, causing the dunes around them to shift and change. The three watched as the wind whipped sand into small, swirling vortexes. It was a mesmerizing dance of natural forces, a display of the desert's potent yet strangely comforting energy. Just as the spectacle began to truly fascinate, the wind turned stronger and stronger, becoming a sandstorm that wrapped around them. Kael quickly led Silas and Hana toward a familiar sight that could be seen from their camp, the open mouth of a large cave carved into the side of a rocky hill. Inside the cave, the air was cool and still, a welcome contrast to the swirling storm outside. Torches were lit, casting dancing shadows upon the cave walls, revealing ancient inscriptions etched into the rock. Kael, who had explored this cave many times before, explained that these were the markings of the desert's old healers, containing wisdom about the magical properties of the different sands. The group slowly moved closer to the walls, fascinated by the drawings and carvings. As Kael began to translate the inscriptions, they spoke of how a specific sands, imbued with particular energies, could be used for healing and calming the mind. Some sands, when gently applied to the skin, could soothe tired muscles. Others, when held in the hand, could ease a restless mind and guide the spirit toward a state of tranquility. Kael showed them drawings that represented different emotional states and how they corresponded to the patterns found in the sand, and described how each grain vibrated with its own unique energy. Kael then directed their attention to a small pile of sand they had brought inside the cave. They explained that it was a special blend of various desert sands, each one chosen for its specific healing properties. They invited Silas and Hana to feel the sand between their fingers, encouraging them to pay attention to the subtle sensations, the changes in temperature, and the delicate shifts in texture. It was a mindful exploration, a sensory meditation that invited them to connect with the earth's calming energy. As Silas ran the cool, smooth grains of sand through their fingers, they noticed a gentle tingling sensation, a soothing vibration that seemed to ease the tension in their shoulders. Hana, in turn, felt a surge of warmth flow through their hands, clearing the fog that had been clouding their thoughts. The activity became a meditation, with the sound of the wind howling outside only highlighting the stillness they had created within. Kael watched them carefully, noting how they each reacted differently, yet both were able to find comfort in the natural world around them. Kael then gathered the sand in their palms and began to perform a ritual that they had learned from the inscriptions. As they moved their hands slowly and deliberately, they began to hum a low, gentle melody, their voice resonating with the ancient energies of the cave. The sand in their hands seemed to glow with a soft inner light, as it was moved into specific shapes and patterns Silas and Hana were invited to mimic Kael's movements, slowly and carefully running the sand through their fingers while keeping their breathing steady and soft. As they did, the subtle differences within the various sands became more apparent. The three of them continued to share, learn, and heal within the cave until the winds began to die down. Kael explained that the storm and the caves were part of the desert's balancing act, that the chaos outside had only highlighted the peace that could be found within. As the sandstorm began to subside, and the soft, gentle light of the moon peeked in through the cave opening, they each found themselves feeling an even deeper sense of calm. The secrets of the shifting sands had been revealed, and they were now aware that even in the most chaotic situations, a centre of peace could always be found. Kael smiled at them both, knowing that their journey was only just beginning. Chapter 4. The Stillness of the Oasis. Heart. The morning after the sandstorm dawned clear and bright. The desert air washed clean and fresh. The sun rose slowly, casting a warm glow upon the landscape, its rays dancing off the dunes like golden ribbons. Kael, Silas, and Hana emerged from the cave, blinking against the gentle sunlight, feeling a sense of renewed energy and calm. The storm had passed, leaving behind a sense of clarity and peace, and a new appreciation for the desert's ability to both challenge and soothe. They followed the river's sandy paths, their steps light and steady. As they journeyed further along the river, the landscape began to change. The dunes gradually gave way to a rocky terrain, and in the distance, a lush patch of green shimmered under the morning sun. It was an oasis, a hidden gem nestled in the heart of the desert, a place of vibrant life and tranquil beauty. The air grew noticeably cooler as they approached, and a subtle scent of fresh water and blooming flowers reached their nostrils. It was a welcome change from the dry heat of the open desert. The oasis was a circular pool of clear, still water, surrounded by tall reeds and flowering plants. The water flowed in gentle spirals, reflecting the sky like a mirror. The soft sound of trickling water filled the air, creating a soothing melody that calmed the mind and eased the spirit. It felt like stepping into a different world, a haven of peace and serenity hidden away from the harsh realities of the desert. The place felt ancient and special, like they had walked into a dream. As they explored the oasis, they discovered a small alcove tucked away behind a cluster of flowering vines. Inside, they found an elderly scholar named Theron, sitting quietly, their head bowed in contemplation. Their face was etched with lines of wisdom and age, yet their eyes held a deep sorrow. They were an interesting addition to the group. As they approached, it was clear that Theron was lost in the fog of their own thoughts. "Greetings, friend," Kael said, their voice soft and gentle. "We sense that your heart is troubled. Is there anything we can do to bring you peace?" Theron lifted their head, their eyes widening slightly as they took in the calming presence of Kael. "I have carried the weight of past regrets for far too long," they said, their voice tinged with sadness. "I find it hard to escape the shadows of my past." Kael offered a gentle smile and invited Theron to join them by the oasis. They all sat together, listening to the soothing sounds of the water, each finding solace in the natural beauty of the place. Kael explained that the oasis was a place of reflection, a space to turn inward and to find acceptance for the past. The water had a way of showing things in new ways, allowing them to reflect upon the past in a way that helped them heal. Kael then began to guide them through a simple meditation, inviting them to focus on their breathing, letting their thoughts pass like clouds in the sky. They encouraged them to visualize the gentle flow of water in the oasis, mirroring the flow of their own lives. Every ripple, every spiral, every movement is part of a greater whole, Kael explained. Like the oasis, our lives are filled with both calm and change. It is all a part of our story. They sat for a long time, letting the stillness of the oasis settle over them. Slowly, Silas, Hana, and Theron each found a measure of peace. Silas was no longer haunted by the restlessness, and Hana had reconnected with her creativity, and Theron found a sense of acceptance for their past. The soft sounds of the water, the gentle breeze, and the warm sunlight worked together to soothe their souls, leading them toward a deeper sense of calm. It became clear that the greatest lessons often came from those that could find the stillness, the peace within themselves, and it was now time to practice. As the sun began its slow descent, casting a warm glow over the oasis, they realized that the lessons of the river were still being written. Chapter 5. The Shores of Serenity. The final day by the river dawned with a serene beauty that seemed to resonate with the peace that had settled within Kael, Silas, Hana, and Theron. The sun rose slowly, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold, as if nature itself was celebrating their shared journey. They gathered by the banks of the sandy river, the gentle flow of the sand reflecting the quiet calm in their hearts. The lessons of the desert had been learned, and now it was time to look within and use what had been gained. They each shared their experiences, their voices soft and reflective. Silas spoke of how he had finally found a way to quiet his racing thoughts, to find rest in the simple act of observing the desert's gentle rhythm. Hana described how she had rediscovered her creative flow, finding inspiration in the slow dance of the wind and sand. Theron, with a gentle smile, expressed how they had come to terms with their past, finding acceptance and peace in the stillness of the oasis heart. Each one had found their own path towards serenity. Kael listened with a knowing smile, their eyes filled with warmth and understanding. The journey towards peace is a personal one, they said, their voices soothing balm. The desert has provided us with a gentle space to discover what we each need. Kael reminded them that the river of shifting sands was not a destination, but a guide, a constant source of calm to return to whenever their spirits felt restless. They described how the patterns of the sand, the rhythms of nature, were always there for anyone who decided to listen. They then invited Silas, Hana, and Theron to practice the simple rituals they had learned, each one in their own way. Silas closed their eyes and focused on their breath, envisioning the gentle flow of the sandy river. Hana began to create patterns in the sand, her fingers moving with a slow and deliberate grace. Theron sat in quiet contemplation, feeling the warmth of the sun on their skin, finding a deep sense of peace in the present. in silence, their bodies still as their minds worked to connect with the serenity of the desert. As they continued, Kael walked among them, reminding them to each find their own pace. Kael explained that this journey along the river was not meant to be the end of their path, but to create a pattern that they would be able to apply throughout their lives. Each of them would take what they learned with them, and they would use it to find calm within their own lives. The river would not leave them. The sun began to set, casting a warm, golden light over the desert. It was time for them to each part ways, but they were no longer the people who had met at the beginning of the journey. Silas felt confident in their ability to find rest. Hana felt the creative flow within her, and Theron was no longer weighed down by the past. They were all in tune with their inner peace. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Kael bid farewell to their new friends. They each embraced Kael with gentle hugs, thanking them for their kindness and wisdom. They would each take their own path now, but Kael was to remain at the river, continuing their journey. Kael smiled as they watched their friends leave, feeling grateful for the opportunity to guide others towards the shores of Serenity. The quiet beauty of the desert night settled over Kael, a gentle reminder that the journey toward peace is a continuous cycle, and that the river of shifting sands would always be there to guide the way. The night air was soft, and the gentle sounds of the desert whispered a lullaby of tranquility and peace. The journey along the river was over, but the lessons and serenity would remain, forever flowing within the hearts of all those who had found their way to the peaceful heart of the Seraphina Desert.